Great. Welcome. Good evening or good morning for those who are joining us across the Pacific. I'm Fan Dai, Director of California China Climate Institute, which is an institute established in 2019 and chaired by former Governor Jerry Brown. We're partnering with Tsinghua on some of our research. If you're interested in learning more about our initiatives, feel free to check out our website, ccci.berkeley.edu. Today, we're really pleased to have with us four distinguished scientists and policymakers. They're Dean Ackley from the Rausser College of Natural Resources at UC Berkeley, Amanda Hansen, Deputy Secretary for Climate Change at the California Natural Resources Agency, and Professor Luo Yong, Associate Director of the Department of Earth Sciences at Tsinghua University, and Michelle Passero, Director of TNC's Climate Change Program in California. Today's dialogue is a start of many, and we're hoping this first one of our dialogue series on nature-based climate solutions, aiming to link scientific research in this field and better inform policies and unfold future possibilities for NBS to play a larger role in carbon mitigation. So I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our co-host, the Nature Conservancy, and our tireless event team who made this dialogue possible. Some quick housekeeping items before we get started. Today's important discussion will be about an hour, and we will start with some quick opening remarks from Dean Ackley and dive into a discussion with the three wonderful experts, and then we'll wrap up. This dialogue is being recorded and will be available on the Institute's website after this event. And if you're experiencing any technical issues during the dialogue, or if you have any questions you want to raise, you could use the Q&A box on your screen to put your questions or any issues that you might have during the session. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Dean Ackley to kick us off. Dean Ackley's the College and Research Group studies the impacts of climate change on biodiversity in California and implications for conservation and land management. Over to you, Dean Ackley.
Thank you very much, Fan. Welcome to all who are joining us, as Fan said, afternoon here in California and in the morning in China. It's a great pleasure on behalf of the University of California at Berkeley to both host this event and welcome all our guests. I speak on behalf of Rausser College of Natural Resources, as well as my colleague, Dean Erwin Chemerinsky at the law school, and together we co-host the California China Climate Institute. And we're very grateful for our continued and building partnerships with Tsinghua University to pursue these initiatives in collaboration. I just want to offer three perhaps very large, big picture framing comments for this discussion and on issues that are, I'm sure, are very familiar to many of those who are listening. We don't need to we don't need to restate, except to state what is becoming the obvious, that the gravity of the climate crisis can really be overemphasized, and the urgency of finding solutions. And we know that this is not something where this is not a question of, is my solution better than your solution? There is no way out of the crisis we're in without bringing to bear an entire portfolio, including everything around the energy transition, as well as nature-based solutions. Neither one alone will be sufficient. As a plant biologist, of course, the very near and dear to my own work is the fact that plants are nature's original factories for taking carbon out of the atmosphere. And we know that that is an incredibly important part of the carbon cycle as we move forward. The second point, though, is that we know that this is not only a science problem and not only a policy problem. It really requires the integration and the deep collaboration of scientists who think about how our natural ecosystems work, together with the economic and policy questions of how we can incentivize and take to scale interventions that can really make a difference in how we manage our systems. And it spans everything from a wilderness area, a national park, untouched mature rainforests around the world, including our temperate rainforests like our redwoods, which have the highest carbon density per hectare of any forest, including our production lands, both forest production lands, rangelands, and agricultural lands. And of course, deep questions about land use and how much is converted to continued expansion of housing and urban use. But it's more than just what happens on those lands. It's, for example, in our food production systems, it's everything about how we produce food, but everything through to our food waste problems. Where does that carbon end up, even if the plants are there to take it from the atmosphere? So it's a very diverse, challenging, and exciting area to be working in right now. The third point, again, familiar to all of us, is that no country, no province, no state can solve this on their own. This is a 100% problem of getting to the full drawdown of carbon or reducing emissions and drawing down. And we are deeply committed to, as an institution, and I'll speak on behalf of the state of California that has been such a leader under former Governor Brown in building ties with China, who are China and the United States together. If we can lead together, we know that with the cooperation and the partnership of the rest of the world, success could be in sight. And if any of us fails to be part of that, it won't be enough. So we're very pleased to continue this partnership. And I'm so glad that this series of dialogues and webinars is underway to learn more and to build the exchange of ideas between California and China. So again, welcome to all of you. Thank you so much. And I'll turn it back to Fan to introduce our speakers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dean Ackley, for your remarks. Really encouraging. And I also want to echo your point that NBS is such an important component of our overall climate strategies. And we know that research has pointed out NBS could achieve nearly 1/3 of the emission reductions under the Paris Agreement target. So it is also an area that we know it's being underestimated in some of our major climate policies. So in this discussion, we will invite 3 experts to share their insights of how NBS should be better embedded in climate policy. And we'll also talk about what research needed to bridge the gap in front of us. We'll invite each panelist to make their opening statement of the issue, and then we'll have a few minutes to ask questions and engage in discussion. So first, I'd like to invite Amanda Hansen to share her perspective from California. Amanda has worked extensively on climate from the state of New York, the White House Council on Environmental Quality, and US State Department, then to California. So Amanda, can you share with us where does the California NBS policy stand and what's likely to change or improve in the future? Please.
Thank you, Fan, and thanks to all of you for having me here. It's a pleasure to join this panel. I would say, sort of overarching, there are sort of 3 factors that have really contributed to California's urgent attention on this sector as we address climate change. First is, the science is clear. We need natural and working lands to achieve carbon neutrality, and California has a target of achieving carbon neutrality by 2045. So we are committed to doing everything we can to ensure that we're as ambitious in this sector as we are in all of the other sectors that we're driving action on. I think another sort of factor for our urgent attention into this space is the incredible impacts that California has been experiencing, climate impacts. So, over the last 10 years, historic drought, historic flooding, historic extreme heat, and obviously historic wildfires. So we are feeling the impacts of climate change now, and know that investment in our natural and working lands and other nature-based solutions will allow us to build climate resilience at the scale and speed that we need. And I would also flag that California has always, as the governor likes to say, punched above its weight, and we see what's happening at the global level with a tremendous amount of focus on this sector as an opportunity not to just drive on climate, but also to drive on our biodiversity goals. And so we're very interested in continuing to be a global environmental leader. And so for sort of all of those reasons and many more, the governor released an executive order in October of last year, really accelerating or calling on California to accelerate our action on climate using nature-based solutions, on climate and biodiversity, I should say. So I'll tick through the executive order at a very high level. I think sort of the top line goal within this executive order is to conserve 30% of California's lands and coastal waters by 2030. And this goal is intended to drive on both biodiversity protection and climate action. The executive order also elevates the role of natural working lands in our climate change agenda. And so, there's a number of different actions that are called for within the executive order, including a target in the upcoming 2022 scoping plan. I will also sort of just close by saying there's a lot of work that California is already doing in this space. We are investing incredible resources in forest health and resilience, in wetland restoration, agricultural, healthy soils, and really turning our attention to boosting green infrastructure in urban areas. There's a few sort of gaps that I might flag. One of which is pretty fundamental, is raising awareness. I think a lot of people hear nature-based solutions or natural working lands and don't quite know what that means. So I think that's pretty low-hanging fruit. And I think we can close that gap through technical assistance, capacity building, et cetera. I would also note that there's a lot of interest in quantifying the value of these nature-based solutions, whether it's carbon or water retention, quality, supply. There's many what are referred to as co-benefits, which I think are all sort of equal and really important to understand. I think I'll wrap there, but just say, I'm very excited to be here. We're really excited to be doing what we can in this space and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amanda, for your very insightful views and bringing us up to date of what's happening in California. I really agree with you on what you said in terms of raising the awareness. I think it's very interesting also to see what are the policy developments in China right now, and in terms of raising awareness. I guess that's a low-hanging fruit, and that's what research actually could help do a lot of work. So let's turn to Professor Luo Yong in China. Professor Luo has dedicated himself to climate research for decades. He's also a lead author from China for the first, second, and third China National Assessment Report of Climate Change. He's also a member of the Nobel Peace Prize winning IPCC team back in 2007. Professor Luo, can you share with us what does nature-based solution mean in China's near-term and long-term planning? And maybe also share with us about your research, what research you and your group are doing at Tsinghua on this topic. Professor Luo, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dai. Actually, it's more than happy for me to have this opportunity to attend this virtual dialogue. You may or may not know that a couple years ago, I visited UC Berkeley as one of the members of the Tsinghua University delegation to discuss and sign the MOU to set up a joint research center between Tsinghua and Berkeley on energy and climate change. I very happy to know that this research center were merged into the CCCI. And I'm very happy to have this opportunity to deliver a little bit about what I understand and what we have already carried out the research related to the natural based solution to climate change. I prepared PowerPoint. Maybe I like to share my screen. Yes, I will talk a little bit about what I understand the nature-based climate solution from the perspectives of China's climate policy and research. Let's go back to the year of 2015. You know that the China's President Xi Jinping attended the COP21 of UNFCCC at Paris, and he announced China's commitment to combat climate change. He said that the Chinese effort requires tremendous efforts, but we have confidence and resolve to fulfill our commitments. And back to the 2 years ago, you know that during the UN Climate Action Summit in New York, China took actions. For example, China and New Zealand co-launched the nature-based solution to climate change mass festival. And last year, during the January debate of the 75th session of the UN General Assembly, President Xi Jinping announced that China's commitment to carbon neutral. China aims to have carbon dioxide emissions peak before 2030 and achieve carbon neutral before the year of 2060. And most recently, the Central Economic Work Conference of China, which is the highest policy-making meeting held in the December 9 to 11 last year, announced 4 main actions to achieve carbon neutral. Large-scale reforestation is among one of them. Actually, this is the first time that Chinese government clearly lay out the roadmap to achieve carbon neutral. Dr. Dai asked me to introduce more about the Chinese climate policy, especially related to the NBS. Very likely, just yesterday, the Ministry of Ecology and the Environment, which takes in charge of the climate change and environment protection issues in China, issued guidance on coordinating and strengthening the work related to climate change response and ecological environment protection. Actually, this guidance is quite comprehensive. If you have interested, I will email or send this document to Dr. Dai. In this document, there are 2 paragraphs at the session of the number 11 session, coordinatedly promote adaptation to climate change, ecologically protection and restoration. The first paragraph related to NBS is that pay attention to the use of nature-based solutions to mitigate and adapt to climate change and work together to promote governance of biodiversity, conservation, landscape, forest, farmland, lake and grass system, and other related work so far, so as to enhance the ability to adapt to climate change and improve the quality and stability of the ecosystem. Another paragraph is actively promote the synergy between ecologically protection and restoration of terrestrial ecosystem, water resources, oceans and coastal zones, and adaptation to climate change, coordinate and promote climate change impact risk assessment in areas such as the agriculture, forestry, water conservation, as well as in cities, coastal areas and ecologically fragile areas, implement adaptation to climate change and enhance the climate change resilience in key areas and regions. So this is the most recent climate policies in China's government. And the next slide I show you is what I understand the NBS, the concept, the setup, and the development. Maybe Michelle introduce more about this. The concept NBS first appeared in the report of biodiversity, climate change, and adaptation, nature-based solution in the World Bank investment issued by World Bank in the year of 2008. Which emphasize the importance of biodiversity protection for climate change mitigation and adaptation. In the year of 2009, you may remember that in that year, there was a very important climate change action, that is the Copenhagen, the COP15 conference of UNFCCC. I was there, but unfortunately, this conference was not a success one. But during that COP15, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the IUCN, emphasized the role of the NBS can play an important role in combating climate change. In its report to the Copenhagen UNFCCC conference, IUCN defined NBS as actions that effectively and adaptively address social challenges and bring benefits to human beings and biodiversity through the protection, sustainable management, and restoration of nature and artificial ecosystem. The European Commission believes that NBS refers to action inspired by, supported by, or modeled on nature, with the main objectives of enhancing sustainable urbanization, restoring degraded ecosystem, developing climate change adaptation and mitigation, and improved risk management and ecology resilience. It incorporates the NBS into the Horizon 2020 research plan to conduct research and pilot on a larger scale, and had a number of NBS related symposiums and workshops after that. So in the following years, there are many and more NBS related research worldwide. You can see from this slide that there are two important IUCN reports, which launched in the year of 2013 and 2016. And from the right end of this time scale, the timeline, you can find that important paper published in the PNAS. The title is Natural Climate Solution. If you have the interest, you may try to find this paper and to read the detail of this paper. Actually, this paper identifies and quantifies 20 specific solutions to protect, restore, and improve land management, which is called NCS pathways, to increase the carbon storage capacity of ecosystems such as the forest, wetlands, and grassland, and agriculture land around the world, and to avoid or reduce the greenhouse gases emissions from land use. This paper estimates maximum climate mitigation potential with safeguards for the reference year of 2030. Nature, Forestry, and Grassland Administration released that it's a very important Chinese government document to show what's the challenges we are facing in addressing climate change, include how to use the NBS as one of important measures to solve the climate change climate change issues. So in order to realize the carbon neutral by the middle of the century, the NBS is particularly important. Actually, we need to take immediate and active actions. However, compared with other measures to deal with the climate change, NBS is still difficult in practical operation and faces two major problems, as I said. The first one is the insufficient capital investment. Many investors do not know how to invest, even if they know the importance of NBS. Another challenge is from the scientific research. We have inadequate research and technical research related to NBS. We do not know how to plan and calculate the benefits that an ecosystem can bring. Let's take China as an example. Natural Forest and Grassland Administration released a number on December 17 last year. The current forest cover in China is 23.04% and will be increased to 24.1% in the year 2025. The area that will be planned equals to roughly the size of Australia. Currently, the forest stores 9.2 billion tons of carbon. Now, forest carbon storage rises by over 200 million tons annually. It is expected to rise in the future. The forests in China are threatened by virus and natural and human disturbance. Among them, the forest fire in China posed a significant threat to use reforestation as an NBS solution to climate change. Where more trees will be planted, the human disturbance to forests will become more intense, along with the urbanization and the use of forests to recreational purpose. There's a very high possibility that forest fires and other disturbance may reduce the effectiveness of NBS solution. Actually, California had the same problem in the forest. And another scientific issue, I think, are related to NBS is the potential of the biomass resources in China. You may know that China are rich in biomass resources, mainly from agriculture, forestry, resilience, and waste. The total available potential is about 0.4 to 1 billion tons of coal equivalents. However, the current biomass energy, the utilization rate is very low, less than 8%. So the colleagues at our Department of Earth System Science, Tsinghua University, and made a rough estimation that the power sector currently consumes about 2 billion tons of coal every year. The existing biomass resources cannot meet the demands of carbon neutral in China. So in the future, China will need to plant more energy crops to ensure the realization of carbon neutral goals. You know that the COP15 of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity was originally scheduled to be held in Kunming, China, from October 15 to 28 last year. The theme of the conference is the ecological civilization, building a community of life on Earth. But unfortunately, because of the impact of COVID-19 epidemic, this event was proposed to this year, May 17 to 30. But you know, if we can have this conference or not is still uncertain. You know, if we have this conference, the COP15 of the UN conference on biodiversity, part of the discussion theme is related to how we can use the NBS as a major measures to reduce the carbon dioxide emission and to adapt to climate change more actively. So let's look forward this conference we'll have in China this year. So for the last point I want to raise is that related to expectation and perspective. So as I see it, the NBS have multiple effects, such as promoting ecological development, social progress, environmental improvement, adapting to and mitigating climate change. It's very important. Giving full plan to the sink enhancement potential of agricultural forest, land use and land use change can offset the residual emissions of sectors that are very difficult to reduce. NBS involve many sectors and have multiple efforts, multiple benefits which should be incorporated into the development strategy and plans of the whole country and all sectors in China. And overall layout and coordinated governance will be needed to enhance the domestic environment quality improvement and carbon dioxide emission reduction by combining technically based solution with the nature-based solutions. Both of them can create a win-win strategy for economic development, energy security, and environment protection, and carbon dioxide emission reduction. Actually, at Tsinghua, especially in the Department of System Science, we have already set up a research group, including the scientists and in the modeler, the observation, the remote sensing, and the model development on the how to calculate the reforestation, how to calculate the potential of the carbon dioxide reduction related to NBS. And also we are very interested in cooperating with colleagues at the UC Berkeley, especially the scientists in the CCCI. So we are looking forward to working with our partners to work on this project and explore foreign cooperation opportunities. We wish to advance the cooperation on climate change research and practice between China and US through our cooperative research actions. And climate change threatens the very existence of human beings. Therefore, countries, including China and the US, need to work together to fight this threat. As the leading institution in climate change studies in China, Tsinghua University will contribute to this great effort. So this is what I understand on the NPS. I'm sorry, my talk is a little bit long, but I would like to thank you for providing me this opportunity to share what I understand inside of the NPS. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Luo. That is a really informative presentation, and I personally learned a lot from your presentation. I know we have already we've already seen some very good questions in the Q&A box. So that's finish with Michelle's opening statement, and we'll jump into the discussion right away. So turn to Michelle, who is the director of climate change program of TNC California. And she also has decades of experiences in land conservation and climate change. Michelle, can you briefly introduce what your organization is advancing in this field and why you think this is an important topic for California and China to exchange and collaborate on? Over to you, Michelle.
Sure. Thank you, Fan, and thank you to the Institute for hosting this. It's a pleasure to be included in this discussion. Appreciate the hard work of the Institute and the important climate work being led by our colleagues in California and China. Just in case some of you are not familiar with the Nature Conservancy, we are a science-based global nonprofit organization, and we're dedicated to the protection of the lands and waters upon which all depends. Climate change is the leading threat to our mission, and we're working around the world to address this problem. And our particular expertise is on the intersection of climate change and the role that nature can play to help address it. We operate in all 50 states in the United States and over 35 countries around the world, including China. And in fact, I think some of my Chinese colleagues may be tuned in to this webinar this evening or this morning for some of you. So we're excited by the climate leadership of California and China and their ongoing commitment and collaboration to address this global threat. And we also appreciate the opportunity to partner with the California-China Climate Institute to advance action on climate change using nature-based strategies, building on and conducting research, peer-to-peer learning, and policy. And so that's one of the things that we're engaged in here in California with our partners and our office in China is this collaboration with the Institute and Tsinghua University, really to try to leverage impact, both with nature-based strategies and on climate change. Professor Luo, and I think Fan, you mentioned this early on, that there is science out there. We have enough science to show that it really is material, that nature-based strategies can play a critical role in addressing climate change, and we need it. We need the science, we need the policy ideas, we need the investments, and also now more than ever, we also need collaboration, right? In a way that we probably have not experienced in the past, and that's government to government, between private and public sectors, and at all levels. So I'm excited by the partnerships that we have through this effort and through our collaboration with the Institute and with our colleagues in China. Just to kind of wrap up quickly, our area and the work that we'll continue to do is working on the science. You mentioned the analysis, around a third of the reductions can come from nature-based solutions to contribute to global climate mitigation. So our colleagues worked on that within the Nature Conservancy, along with a number of other folks. We've done the same here in California, and we'll continue to do that. And we did recently release a report here for California, highlighting the opportunities that nature-based strategies can contribute to California's climate goals to reach carbon neutrality. The Institute was a collaborator in this effort, and it helps build a foundation for what kind of policy strategies could be implemented across the state to help us achieve our goals. And so we'll continue to do work like that. Biodiversity was mentioned a few times here too, and that is core to our mission as well. And so I think there's a lot there. Maybe we can cover it in our discussion and in questions just around some of the opportunities there to look at a multi-benefit approach.
Great. Thanks, Michelle, for your introduction about TNC's work, and also thank you for all of your support of this initiative. So now we'd like to turn to the real discussion and utilize the time left today for some questions and answered by the panelists today. I know we have some very good questions already in the Q&A box. Before we jump into the questions here, I'm just curious, maybe taking advantage of being the moderator today. I like to ask both both Amanda and Professor Luo a question. You both mentioned that it's very important to integrate nature-based solution into the climate strategies. Can you tell us a bit more your evaluation or where you see the policies in California today, and where we, with the path we're heading, where we would be, or are we doing enough to achieve the carbon neutrality by 2045? The same question for Professor Luo is, you mentioned a couple important policy and actually had the text of those documents, which is really helpful. Do you see NBS, the nature-based solution, being embedded in China's upcoming 14th five-year plan or longer-term plannings? I'll stop right there. Maybe Amanda, we can start from you.
Thanks for the question, Fan. Yes, California has included the natural and working lands sector in our scoping plan, which is, every 5 years, we outline how we are going to achieve our greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. And in 2022, we will be releasing an update to the scoping plan. I think that is, and I'll answer this, your question and the question in the chat, which I tried to write an answer to and I wasn't capable, so I apologize. But the scoping plan process that CARB is going to be, the California Air Resources Board will be kicking off, I believe later this year, is going to help us understand just how much this sector can and must contribute to carbon neutrality. So it's been in the scoping plan for many years and will continue to be. I would also point to, the state's adaptation strategy, which has been updated several times. Natural and working lands has been featured prominently in our adaptation strategy for many years, and I think will only continue to do so moving forward. We are slated to update this strategy in 2021, and there will be a significant amount of attention focused on integrating nature-based solutions to a broader adaptation approach.
Great, thanks, Amanda. Professor Luo, do you want to share what you think in terms of nature-based solution being embedded into the 14th five-year plan in China, or as you were saying, the carbon neutrality target for 2060, which is a long-term plan and decarbonization target in China? Do you foresee that kind of tendency, or maybe just share your observation because you're in China?
Okay, it's very important, very good question, but very difficult to answer for me, because the NBS is a very pretty new measures for China's government to use in combating climate change and also to contributing to the carbon neutral target. And as I just introduced the Chinese government climate policy, the NBS is quite new for the first time to be thought as to be mentioned as one of the climate change measures. So it's a large gap between the scientific research and also the actions to need to achieve the carbon neutral target. But as far as I understand, that the Chinese central government has made their efforts to try to incorporate this NBS into the climate change policies. Let's take one example. Probably you know, at the just held Climate Ambition Summit to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, President Xi Jinping announced that China's national independence contribution goals and measures to improve its efforts in the year of 2030. He said that by 2030, China's carbon dioxide emission per unit of GDP will decrease by more than 65% compared with 2005. Non-fossil energy will account to about one-fourth, say the 25% of primary energy consumption, and forest stock will increase by 6 billion cubic meters compared with the year 2005. And also the wind energy and the solar power generation will increase dramatically. So I take this enhanced the NDC of China as an example to show that the government has made this concrete step to action to incorporate NBS as one of the measures in the climate change policy. But if you want to know if this is enough or not, it's very difficult to answer, because we do need to carry out more research on the potential of the forest terrestrial ecosystem, the potential to reduce the carbon dioxide, how much can absorb the atmospheric carbon dioxide into the terrestrial ecosystem. And also we have to estimate how much the damage will pose to the forest, say that the forest fire. So this is a very uncertainty in science, and we have to do more about that to try to answer your question. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you. And sorry to ask you the difficult questions. I realized also in the Q&A box, we got a related question for you, Professor Luo. I think from Cindy Chen asking, you mentioned that one of the challenges in nature-based climate solution is a lack of investment. And what do you see the role for private sectors, or maybe in general, investment could help advance nature-based solution in China?
Okay, yes, actually it's very important to encourage the investment in NBS related action. As I said, there is at least 3 points we have to enhance. The first one is based on the scientific research. We need to let the investor understand how much the benefit they could achieve if they invest a large amount of financial into the NBS action. This is a scientific perspective. And the second one is the climate change or policy or some other financial and other related policy. What I want to say is that the government need to set up some encouraging policies to levy the private sectors to invest into the NBS related actions. And the third one, maybe we can think about to incorporate NBS related into the carbon market. You know, China has several years history in set up the overall carbon market. And if we can incorporate the NBS into the carbon market, no doubt it will be encouraged more and more financial and investment into the NBS related actions. That is my answer to this question at the current moment. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Also very insightful. I think having more financial incentives and sending clear policy signals would definitely be very helpful to leverage private sector's role in nature-based climate solution. Amanda, do you want to, I know you've answered a bit already for this question. Anything you want to add to this question asking about the percentage of land sink in California's carbon budget and how you see the gap? And I think you already answered part of that, but anything to add?
You know, I would just add that we do know that our forests are no longer a sink. And so we also know that to reverse that trend, it will take time. I mean, this is one of the challenges is that, you know, you invest in a nature-based solution and some of the benefits are yielded right away and others, you know, take time to really develop and mature fully. So, you know, I think we take away from this that, you know, we know action in this sector is needed. We know our forests play a critical role in both achieving carbon neutrality and protecting our communities and our public health. And so, you know, I think that the challenge in this sector, at least it often feels to me, is to find a way to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and to take steps that we know are going to be beneficial to our people, and our planet. And I think you know, there's so many benefits, as the professor laid out in his remarks, that we can point to. I think, you know, carbon is only one. And when I think about, you know, China and California, it's not surprising that there's sort of mutual interest in really exploring this space. You know, we have economies that are based on innovation. We are geographically large and diverse, and very sort of culturally connected to nature. And so, you know, there's a lot of opportunity with that backdrop. You know, and I'd say that it sounds as well as though there's areas of sort of mutual interest to explore, you know, what these nature-based solutions how they can help us deliver on our goals, whether that is wetlands or forests, or investments in our urban areas. So I guess I would just add that.
Great, wonderful. I guess we got an easy question for you, Michelle. Looks like Tara wants to know where we can access the report you mentioned.
You can access it on our website, nature.org.
Great, and we'll also try to
oh, Fan, you're can't hear your voice.
Oh, sorry, I was talking while I was on mute. I thought that was an easy answer, and we'll try to make that resource available also and cross-reference. I'd like to ask one closing question to all the panelists today is really going back to why we're doing this webinar and this dialogue is, what do you see would be priorities in terms of topic areas for this collaboration between California and China? And especially how you see the benefits and outcomes you would envision to come out of such collaboration. Let's start with Professor Luo this time. Professor Luo.
Yes, I do think that the bilateral cooperation between China and California is pretty important because climate change is an issue worldwide, and we have to work together. And as the priority of the research, because my background is scientific research, so I want to emphasize the research in the estimation of how much the potential of the carbon dioxide reduction related to NBS, and how much the damage will be posed to NBS. For example, the human disturbance such as the fire, the wildfire, the forest fire, which have the very important for China and also for California. So this is a need to develop a comprehensive model system. I think we need cooperation from the remote sensing and on-site observation to test, to validate the model system, and then we can use it to make a pretty good risk assessment for the time being, and also for the future. For example, the middle and the end of this century. And this is very important. The Tsinghua University, at least our department, look forward to enhance the bilateral cooperation with the California's experts and scientists. Thank you.
Wonderful. Amanda?
Thanks, Fan. I mentioned some areas where I think there could be useful collaboration, and I think one of our California's interest is really thinking about how to use nature-based solutions to address both biodiversity and climate change. As someone just noted in a question, you can utilize a nature-based solution that addresses climate and sort of leaves out 50% of the benefit because you're not thinking about biodiversity. And so, trying to sort of pack as much punch as we can into the actions that we take, particularly in light of our economic challenges at the moment, is, I think, a really important area that we might explore together. I'm very interested in the wildfire suggestion. And again, would sort of point to the forest and the wetlands and the urban areas as sort of maybe useful places to start. I also think, that there could be really good opportunity to just have a focused conversation around, capacity building and technical assistance, because one of the things we've learned in California is that, there are a number of actors or land managers who are very open to undertaking these actions, and just simply require some level of support that we could help facilitate and really sort of create change agents in that way. So I would just throw those ideas out and just second everything that the professor mentioned around remote sensing and research. So thank you.
Great, thanks Amanda for even answering one more question from the Q&A box. These are really great suggestions. Michelle, anything to add on the next steps?
I am cognizant of the time, and I don't want to repeat what Dr. Luong had said, as well as Amanda. I echo those and just would underscore the opportunity here for both California and China really to leverage global action and demonstrate what collaboration looks like what partnership looks like by sharing research, collaborating on research, working on capacity building, all those other elements that really go into making things work. So I think it's an inspiring effort, and I think there's a huge opportunity.
Wonderful. Great. I think we are almost on top of an hour, and it's been a really, really rich conversation today. And I know we said we plan to do a series of the dialogue, and I want to also use this opportunity to share some of our upcoming sessions on this topic. And as you can probably see on the screen, that we have some upcoming sessions on nature-based solution from different aspects. We would love to continue to see your continuous participation in this dialogue series. And lastly, I just want to thank you again for the panelists today for your bringing your insights and share your understanding and observations with us. And thank you again for all the audience for your participation. And we look forward to seeing you next time soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.